And then I just plug it in to my formula. This is my slope. This is my what would be equivalent to slope in a line. My equation would be y equals negative 1/3 x minus 1 squared plus 2. And then I would solve for my third line. And for this one, I would just use what I did for this one. I'll find my starting point, which is at 4/8. And then I would find my ending point isn't a solid point, so I have to find a solid point on the graph. My next solid point would be at 7, 7. So I would use that instead of finding the last point. And then I just use my slope formula again, and I would get 7 minus 8 over 7 minus 4. And I would get 7 minus 8, which is negative 1. And then 7 minus 4 is positive 3. So negative 1 over 3 is my slope. And then I would just plug it in to my point slope formula, and I would get, I'm going to use the 0.77. I would get y equals negative 1/3 parentheses x minus 7 plus 7. And this would be my third equation. And then I would come back and finish writing my piecewise function. So I would plug in my parabola equation. And then find my interval, which would be at -3. And since it's a open circle, it would be a parentheses and not bracket. And then at 4. And since it's an open circle, it would be a parentheses, not a bracket. And then my last equation and I will find my intervals for this one, and it starts at +4, and since it's a closed circle, it would be a bracket, and it ends at +8. And this is an open circle, so it would be a parentheses. After you find things like this, after you find your equation, then you're able to solve follow-up questions, like the minimum value, where it's increasing or decreases, where it's concave up, and where you can solve for 7. You don't necessarily have to have the equation, but they are more helpful. In order to find your maximum value, you would just look on your y-axis and find where is the highest point. And the highest point on the y-axis is 8, and that's the highest point where this equation reaches. So your maximum value of this function would just take place at 4/8, and you use the x value. You use the y value to find the maximum value. So your high point would be 8. On your intervals, where it's decreasing, you can just find that by seeing where the slope is negative, where the equation is going down. On the parabola, you can see that it's right here, and on your line, because it's going down, it would have a negative slope. In order to find the intervals, you just find the domain. It starts at 1 and ends at 4. And since this was a closed circle, since it's included in the graph, it would be a bracket because it would be the same as a closed circle. And since this is an open circle, it would be a parentheses. And then you find your second interval, which would be 4 to 8. And the 4 is increased with a closed circle, and your 8 is not included with a parenthesis. Over what intervals is f of x concave up? It would never, concave up would just be when your parabola is going this way instead of this way. So that means your curve would be going upwards. As you can see, this parabola is going down and it's never going to be going up. So your answer for this would be never. Solve for f of x equals 7. Do not use your calculator. This equation, you would just find where every time your parabola touches the point 7 on the y-axis. In this equation, it touches 2 times, and you don't have to use your equations to solve for it because they're solid points. It would be at -3, 7, and at +7, 7. So you just plug in the x values, and it would be -3 and 7. And that's where your piecewise functions equals 7.